Now we're going to solve the following inequalities. I'm going to say half algebraically and half graphically. We're going to do some components algebraically, but then we're going to make a rough sketch of its graph and then look at the graph to answer the question. So we have x squared minus 7x is greater than 0. So if you notice from the previous page, what was important parts of these graphs wasn't that vertex. I didn't care about that. But it was a big deal about where this crossed the x-axis, right? So the first thing I need to do is solve for the x-intercepts. So here we have a quadratic. And the first thing we do, now that it equals 0 or is greater than 0, is to look for a GCF. And I have one of x. So I'm going to pull out my x. And that leaves me with x minus 7. If you distribute that back, we get back to the original. X times x is x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x. So now, solve these. My first x-intercept is at x equals 0. And then my second one is at x equals 7. Now again, all I really care about is that x-axis. So I'm going to make this rough sketch right here. And we have negative infinity to infinity. I'm not even making that y-axis here. And this is crossing at 0 and crossing at 7. Now, because this is an x squared, I know it's a parabola. And because this is a positive x squared, that means that this graph is going to open up. This graph opens up. So it's going to have this shape right here. So it starts up here. It's going to come down, cross through that x-axis, dip down, and I have no idea how low it goes, and I don't care, but I know it's eventually going to come back up and cross at x equals 7, and then come up right there. So there is a rough sketch of my graph. Again, I don't care how low this vertex is, and we can find it by using our formulas, but it's not important. So now using this graph right here, if I'm wanting to know when this graph is greater than 0, what section of this graph am I talking about? Places that are greater than 0 are going to be above this x-axis. I'm going to make sure I don't touch that x-axis again or cross it. We're talking about this portion of my graph. This is where my y is greater than 0. So we have two different sections here. This section over here is negative infinity to 0 with a parenthesis. And then the union, 7 to infinity. Let's do it again here. What do we need to do first on part B? First thing we need to do is subtract that 10 over. So I have x squared plus 3x minus 10 is less than 0. And now, because we have a trinomial, let's try factoring this. So my a times c is 1 times negative 10. My b is 3. What adds up to b but multiplies to ac? So pause this video and see if you can find that number, or those numbers. Okay, I hope you've had time. If not, pause it quickly. Because it's 5 and negative 2. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. When we add, we get 3. Because this is an easy trinomial, it factors to x plus 5, x minus 2, We have an x-intercept at x equals 5 and an x-intercept at x equals 2. And that should be a -5. Okay. So I make a rough sketch of this graph. I don't care about the y. We have an x-intercept at -5 and an x-intercept at 2. So let's make a rough sketch. We again know this is a parabola because of x squared. And because this is positive, this opens up again. So it's going to start up here. It's going to cross right here at x equals -5. It's going to go down here below. I have no idea how low because it could go way down here or it could go really shallow. No idea, but it doesn't matter. I know it goes below, and then once it gets to x equals 2, it's going to turn back up. So this time, if I want to know when is this less than 0, what part of this graph are we talking about? And we're talking about everything below. So it does not equal, so it is not that x-axis, but it is everything here below. So at -5 to 2, with parentheses, since it's less than and not less than or equal to.